All right, so good afternoon, everyone. Welcome again to our webinar on substance use disorder in nursing, being brought to you by the New Mexico Peer Alliance for Nurses and the Wisconsin Peer Alliance for Nurses. My name is Kristen Waite-Labatt. I have been a nurse for over 33 years now, and I've been in recovery for 20 years. I am the founder and president of Wisconsin Peer Alliance for Nurses and the founder of New Mexico Peer Alliance for Nurses. I'm thrilled to be your moderator today, and we want to educate you on substance use disorder in nursing. Obviously, that's the title of the webinar, but we also want to share some resources that are available, especially to New Mexico nurses. There are two programs that I would like to highlight. The first is the Diversion Program. I'll put a link to the website in the chat so that you can find out more, but the program is available for New Mexico nurses who have a substance use issue. It's an alternative to discipline program, allowing nurses to be monitored while they return to safe nursing practice. If you would like more information, you can email the Board of Nursing in New Mexico or the program manager, Becky Gonzalez. Hi, Becky, I see you. I will put both of those emails in the chat as well very shortly. And then the second program I would like to highlight is the New Mexico Peer Alliance for Nurses. This is a peer support program. Peer support being nurses in recovery, supporting other nurses who are either looking for or who are in recovery. And it's for nurses that are in the diversion program, but not only them, it's also for any nurse that would like some support with their substance use. All of the meetings are free, confidential, and virtual, and they are separate from the Board of Nursing and the diversion program. So I will also put a link to that website in the chat, along with a flyer and an email address, so you can reach out to us in case you have questions or in case you would like some support. All right, without further ado, I am going to introduce our speakers, and it's wonderful to see so many people here. I'm really excited. Melissa Owens is our first speaker. Melissa is a dedicated registered nurse with over 18 years of experience. I might have that wrong, Melissa, so correct me if I'm wrong. Melissa shares her personal account of drug diversion and how recovery turned her life and her career around. So I will turn it over to you, Melissa. And again, thanks everyone for joining us.
Well, hello. Thank you, Kristen. And no, I don't believe you have that wrong. Although it may be 19, close to 20, but we'll stick with this. Anyways, hello everybody. Thanks for having me here at the webinar. I'm happy to be here. I just want to first of all apologize. I am under the weather, so hopefully the screen will be generous to me. My makeup team didn't arrive on time, but we'll just make do with it. So anyways, I'm just very happy to be here, and just thank you all for attending. So as Kristen mentioned, my name is Melissa. I am a nurse in recovery. I have been a nurse since 2006. I went to nursing school a little bit later, not right after high school. I took several years off and tried to figure out what I wanted to do, but caregiving was always kind of a common thread. It was just kind of pulled towards just helping people. So I went to nursing school, which was difficult. Got through nursing school. Still kind of towards the end of it, was wondering exactly I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do, what specialty line I'd go into. And I was offered a job in an intensive care unit, which is what I ended up accepting, and took the job straight out of nursing school to work in an intensive care unit at a level 2 hospital. Outside of Madison, Wisconsin here. And that was great. I mean, the first couple of months, I worked without my graduate nurse license would hold me. And it was very hands-on, very fast, and everything I kind of wanted. I should say, I was really inspired to become a nurse by watching the show ER, if anybody remembers that show. And I kind of thought that's how nursing was going to be. Turned out it's not, and it wasn't, but I wanted to follow that kind of fast-paced, intense kind of a challenge. And so ICU definitely brought that to me. I spent the first couple of months crying after every shift, thinking I'm not sure I can do this. But one day at a time, and I was able to get my feet on the ground. But at the last semester of nursing school, I developed migraines, as I'm sure most people do in nursing school. But when I then was transitioned out and working as a nurse in intensive care, I met with a primary, a new doctor, and she had given me a prescription for Vicodin, 70 tablets of Vicodin. Take one or two if you have a headache, and let's just see if that helps as a first line of treatment. And so, I remember a couple of weeks going past, and then the first migraine that I had, I took Vicodin, and it helped. And for me, I really remember at that time, the next day after trying that first kind of treatment, the next day I got up, and I, just helped myself to another Vicodin. And at first it just felt, it was a day off, and I just thought, that it gave me a sensation of like just something I had never had before. Never really had a problem with any sort of substances in high school, just kind of the normal sort of dabbled in here and there and was active in sports. But this was, something that definitely just connected me to a different feeling right away. So the behavior started quickly for me. I was able to, just kind of use this recreationally, if you will, and go to work, perform at work, not call in sick, did really well for many, many years. And this was kind of something in the background that I just used to kind of relax, mellow, whatever you call it, or however I justified it, I should say. But I kept that going for, quite a few years, and until I didn't. And really what I think the changing moment for me was, as we know with substances, I mean, there's a physical dependence, and then there becomes kind of an emotional, spiritual, mental dependence as well, all of that. And the physical dependence for me was something that I didn't realize would be so difficult for me to overcome. But I tried, and I went through many, bouts of not having it, trying to find it again, having it, and really fought that, battled that, and again worked in intensive care in different settings, and in the cardiac cath lab, and was wanting to figure out how to get help and stay away from this, but also not sure how to do that and be able to preserve my job. So I just continued to try to battle it on my own. I didn't want to get help at work. I didn't want to get help from my family. There was such a stigma of, there was so much shame around it that I was physically dependent on it. Because at that point, I didn't really realize the grip that it had on just my life overall. I knew that I was physically unable to get off of it, but that wasn't even close to what the actual problem was. What then became clear to me too was that, in ICU, that's a very high stress job. And I was, taking care of just a lot of really sick individuals and seeing a lot of traumas and things that at the time I was very capable of handling, and kind of turning that off and just being there, getting through the job at the time. But, so many traumatic patients I remember having, and then it just all stopped, whether they passed away or I was done with work, one or the other. But, where do those feelings go afterwards? I didn't have any place to share those. I didn't come home and debrief anybody. And I think they're just kind of continued to get stuffed away. And I realized for me that substance in the opioids was something that, maybe some people go home and have a glass of wine after work to relax. That became my crutch, if you will. And it really kind of filled that hole for kind of just suppressing a lot of the really sad events I was seeing in a lot of the trauma I think that was developing, related to caring for that and so forth. But, that and a total lack of any sort of wellness skills or coping skills. I just didn't have any sort of arsenal of that. So it really was kind of the perfect storm to develop a problem. Skip ahead to roughly around 2015. I was working in a cardiac cath lab, and life was really good. I mean, I had just won an award at work for this award. They started with a nurse being the one that was most willing to jump in and help, and stay later, take extra assignments, things like that. And although that definitely was the kind of nurse I was, I was also doing that because at the same time I was, feeling a addiction to fentanyl at the end of that. When I was unable to obtain prescriptions anymore, I was able to obtain the waste after a lot of the procedures that I was working. And, so with that said, that obviously came to an abrupt halt very quickly. I think I was able to divert waste for a couple of months, but ultimately ended up getting caught diverting from my job in the cath lab, and was very grateful to. I think it's important for me to insert that I didn't find out until months later after I had read a police report and so forth, but it was my coworkers that actually found my behavior a little bit odd on why I was there, what I was doing, and they had the courage to pursue that and ultimately call hospital security and kind of look into that. And I say that because I'm very grateful for that. Upon first reading that in the police report, it stung. I must say, I was kind of thinking at the time, like, I can't believe that these were my friends. I mean, these were good friends. They came to my baby showers, things like that. But how hard it was for them to do that. And ultimately they completely saved my life by doing that. So I just really want to highlight that because I think it's important. As nurses, we're such a close-knit group, and when we work with these people and inside the hospital, outside the hospital, but seeing something, noticing a difference can really make a difference in somebody's life. And I truly believe had they not come forward with that, I don't know that I would be here. I still wouldn't have gotten the help. And it probably would have died. I was taking an absurd amount of fentanyl from the hospital. And so I'm very grateful that they had the concern to bring that forward. And ultimately that did get me caught. I lost my nursing license, obviously lost my job, was turned into the Wisconsin Board of Nursing and then the DEA, and had some legal charges that were filed against me as well. I was able to go through a deferred prosecution for that. I'd had no prior issues with the law, but my nursing license was suspended, and I was put under a 5-year monitoring program through the state of Wisconsin Board of Nursing, which was, very intense. I'm not sure exactly what it's like in New Mexico, but just required a lot of limitations on my license. The financial impact from that was huge. Couldn't find a job for quite a while and just had very limited areas in which I could work. Counseling, drug tests, it was a life-changing experience, but I took it. I was very grateful to have a chance to keep my license. So I did that and completed that program in 2022. And have been working as a nurse since. I currently work from home, doing like a case management for an insurance company, which if you would have asked me 10 years ago when I was working in ICU and kind of the heart of it, I would have said, you're crazy. I would never work a job where I'm not doing this, where my hair's on fire and I just don't have a moment to breathe. But this is where I'm at right now, and I'm very grateful for it. And this suits me well, where I'm at right now. But real quickly, we just want to tie in that when I first got caught diverting it, the shame and all of that was just so incredibly heavy. I did not know what to do. I could hardly get out of bed for, the first couple of months, but my mom provided me with a book. It was called An Unlikely Addict. And I read the book, which I'm surprised about because at that time, I just really didn't want to do anything. But read the book, and it was a story about a nurse who had also had, this previous substance use disorder and lost her job and all of that. And reading that just provided me with so much hope in those first couple of weeks and months that I truly believe saved my life. And because I felt so isolated that I was the only nurse who had done this. I never had spoken to anybody else who, fell this far or made this stupid of a decision, whatever, was going through my mind at the time. I just was really beating myself up. So this book provided me with so much hope. And the book happened to be Kristen's book that she wrote, An Unlikely Addict. So I had known of Kristen. since the beginning. And, she had kind of been my source of hope for many, many years. And I was then led on to an email in 2022 or 2021, Kristen, I'm not good with the date, of when Kristen was going to be starting WISPAN. And I got the email, reached out to Kristen outside of that, and basically said, I'm your biggest fan. I want to connect with you. I want to help other nurses just as you do. Please just let's meet and talk. And so we did. And the groupie met the author and we talked and connected. And I have been connected with WISPAN since. And really, it's just, my whole purpose in sobriety and life as a nurse moving forward. Sorry. I will have 10 years of sobriety May of this year. And really my focus is just to educate, as many people about this as possible, and to be that sort of source of hope like Kristen was for me, when I needed it most. And to be there on the other side to say things will get better. There's ways to get sober. There's ways to take care of ourselves. And we don't have to hide and do that. But again, it's all a process. It took me a couple of years to be pretty comfortable, speaking about this. But now I'm out there ready to talk to whomever, just to let you know if you're struggling with this, there's many ways you can reach out to get help. And just want to be a part of however I can to educate, and hopefully we can just get a little bit more compassion around this issue, because it's definitely something that we're facing, and it's very hard to get out of. So I hope that all makes sense. Again, I apologize, I'm ill, but so happy to be here. And I'm just hoping that something from my story will resonate with somebody. So thank you all.
Thank you so much, Melissa. I know that you're not feeling well, and I just really appreciate that you are willing to join us anyway. So thank you. I always love listening to your story, not just the part about being my biggest fan, because it's funny to think I have fans, but you are an inspiration to us, and how you have helped us at WISPAN is just incalculable. I don't know, hard to calculate. So
That's
thanks.
great.
Thank you for being here. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So next up, we have Jenny Klug. She is a registered nurse in recovery. She's going to share how alcohol affected her career and how she is navigating her recovery. Take it away, Jenny.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jenny. I am a nurse in recovery. This is my first time really sharing my story, so bear with me. I'm just going to start out with a little bit of a background. My parents had me at a very young age. They were 16 and unable to raise me. So my maternal grandmother raised me. I didn't really have too much of a relationship with my parents. My mom was an alcoholic, and my dad was a teenage boy. So growing up, I had a lot of mixed feelings. I've had abandonment from the two people who I thought would be, who you assume are in your life and there for you no matter what. And this affected my confidence and feelings of fitting in. So as I got older and got into high school, I experimented with alcohol for the first time. And once I had some alcohol in me, I felt like I fit in, that my confidence increased, that people accepted me, that I was part of the crowd. So my binge drinking, and I was a big binge drinker. I was in sports and did well academically. But on the weekends, it was just kind of let loose and drink until I blacked out and made poor decisions. I thought that was normal. All the kids did it. Lived in Wisconsin. Drinking is a very big part of culture in Wisconsin, unfortunately. But then I went on to college, and actually I went to school. My first career my bachelor's degree is in criminal justice, and I was a probation and parole agent for 16 years in the state of Wisconsin. During this time, life was manageable. I continued to kind of binge on the weekends, but still be able to go to work and function. And I had my first son when I was 20 and did life as a single mom with a career while partying on the weekends. I went on to graduate school and I met my husband in 2000. We were married in 2004, and we had my second son shortly after. So at the time, life was going pretty good. I wasn't drinking quite as much, but when I did drink, it was always to excess. I always blacked out. Made poor decisions, got in arguments with my husband, woke up hungover, feeling terrible. And but it was infrequent and it was not at that point really affecting my life as much. I had always wanted a really big family. So we tried to have a second baby. And after several years of infertility and treatments and testing, I found out that I had premature ovarian failure and was not able to have any more children. This was really a turning point for me. It really led me to a deep depression. I felt like my body had failed. I felt like I was depressed. My family and friends were, you should be happy. You have two healthy children. So then I felt so guilty, and because I wasn't grateful for having them, I was, but I was just sad, and I didn't know how to grieve that kind of loss. So I turned to alcohol, which had always been my coping mechanism in the past. And so I kind of continued in the same path. My drinking ramped up. I drank wine at night. I thought that was acceptable. Um, and that slowly turned into drinking, having a hair of the dog, having a drink in the morning. I was still working, still married, and had a house and all that good stuff, but I was very empty on the inside. Um, my career was not satisfying, so I had the great idea. And I've always wanted to be a nurse. I've always loved helping people. I probably should have helped myself first and then thought about going to school, but I went back to school for nursing. Um, and I completed that program and became an RN in 2019. So I graduated. I was working on a med surg floor at Freighter, and COVID hit. Um, the idea of being a nurse was I would, go into rooms and help people and make them feel better and send them home. Well, when COVID happened, that definitely threw all of us for a big loop. Patients were very sick, dying, scared. We were scared, didn't know what was going to happen next. And with that, my drinking definitely increased. Um, Over that year, 2 years, I had a lot of ups and downs and bouts with really bad drinking. I went to inpatient rehab. I went to partial hospitalization, IOP. My husband was scared. My family was scared. I was scared. My kids were scared. I ended up having some legal consequences with DUIs. Um, I ended up going to work one morning and was still intoxicated from the night before, but I'm thinking, oh, I didn't drink today, or well, I drink into the wee hours of the morning. And some of my coworkers noticed that my behavior was off and I probably smelled heavily of alcohol. So my manager came up to me and asked me, what was going on. And ended up going to health services and had my blood drawn for a toxicology screen, and it came back positive for alcohol. I was suspended. My nursing license was suspended. I did give notice to the Board of Nursing that of the incident. Um, I don't know if I said this, but obviously I was terminated from my position. Um, So I was just very down and felt so much guilt and shame and didn't know where to turn. I ended up getting approval from the Board of Nursing to practice after a license suspension. I was put in the 5-year state of Wisconsin monitoring program, which is includes random drug tests, aorta therapy, weekly meetings, and then I have to notify my employers of my limited license and be completely transparent and submit quarterly reports as to my employers. So how I got to find Wispan is I was watching the news one night and I saw a story come on, and it was the drug addicted nurse pardoned. And I was like, what is this about? And the story just had talked about a nurse that was struggling with addiction, and she founded a program, a peer support program for nurses. Um, this was really like a light for me. It made me feel like I was not alone. And so I reached out to Kristen and joined the WISBAN meetings and eventually became a board member. And having WISBAN has just been really helpful for me to navigate the monitoring program and have that fellowship of other nurses support that I am not in this alone. Um, so even though like the nursing program has or the monitoring program has definitely been difficult to navigate, I'm so grateful that I do have my nursing license. I have the ability to practice. I did not hurt anyone, myself, my family, um, is so proud of how far I've come. And I, work on this one day at a time. I feel like my life is in a much better place now. I am sober. I am working. I have wonderful friends, family support. And I just hope I can share my story to encourage others to reach out and to just know that they're not a bad person, that addiction does not mean you are a bad person, that you don't deserve a happy life. Um, and that's all I have to share. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Jenny. You'd never know that was the first time you were sharing your story. I so appreciate your openness. It is so impactful. We knock down stigma a few notches every time we share our stories openly like that. So thank you so much for doing that. I know it was hard. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so our final speaker for today is Nancy Coram. Nancy has been the Vice President and Chief Nursing Officer of Children's Wisconsin since 1997. She has seen firsthand how substance use can affect nursing practice and is going to share some of her very valuable experience with us. So I will turn it over to you, Nancy.
Thank you, Kristen. And thank you, Jenny and Melissa. I am so proud of you. And Jenny, you did a beautiful job sharing your story for the first time. I would not have known that was your first time either. I'm going to share a few things and kind of my why for being involved with WISPAN. As Kristen said, I'm the Chief Nursing Officer for Children's Wisconsin. And when you say the year I started, it's been over 27 years I've been doing this role. And I love what I do. I love that I have the opportunity to work with amazing nurses. And what Kristen didn't share with you, one of the amazing nurses I worked with years ago was her. I happened to be the chief nursing officer that had to report her to the State Board of Nursing. It is one of the things that chief nursing officers do when something happens. And what I always say, when someone crosses the line, and that's what Kristen did, and her story of diverting, the other word for diversion is stealing fentanyl from Children's Wisconsin. And I will tell you, when I listened to Jenny and Melissa's story, Kristen, same thing. What a wonderful person Kristen is. And Melissa, Jenny, everybody's human. And when we figured out, it was Kristen was a transport nurse clinician at the time, so fentanyl was missing out of our transport packs, and we could not figure out what was happening. The ampules embedded in this pack, which was really strong. I mean, even me, a bigger person, jumping up and down on the pack, trying to break some of these things. We could not figure out how the ampules were getting broken. And so became pretty clear a number of times it had happened that it was diversion. So when we figured out it was Kristen, myself, her manager, our director of security, I could not believe it. I could not believe it. An amazing nurse. And what is going on here? So Kristen went through what you guys described. We had to terminate her employment. I did have to report her to the State Board of Nursing. And what I do, I think I might be the only CNO on earth that calls the nurses before I report. Why do I do that? Because I want to know. Wanted Kristen and others that I have through the years to know that I care, and I want to kind of try to figure out what happened, because generally the story is similar to yours, Melissa. You started somewhere and it just became easier. I've heard the stories of a few nurses over the years where it was stress of a divorce, just something that had happened where there was pain and I got addicted to the pain medications, alcohol, as you described, Jenny, just a number of different things. And it doesn't happen overnight. And so what I said to Kristen is, help me understand what you did, but really why. And her story it is in, I've got the book, The Unlikely Addict. She tells her story. And again, this didn't happen overnight. And so my mantra is I want to make sure that the nurses know what to expect when you're reported to the State Board of Nursing. And I just had a conversation in the recent month. You need to know that this is what's going to happen. They're going to let you know what happens to the license. It's going to take a while because state boards of nursing, it takes a while for them to get through the investigative stage. And you're going to have to do what they tell you to do in order to reinstate their license. Many times people say, I'm going to be able to get my license back. I said, well, you haven't lost it yet because they haven't made the determination. But if they suspend or put any disciplinary action with you, you have to do what is in that order in order to get your license back. So if you look at Kristen, Jenny, your story, and Melissa, you have your license. You are working. You are contributing to the field of nursing. So my story behind all of this is and Kristen and others like Kristen is, how could we have backed this up and prevented that from happening? How could we prevent crossing the line? And I think that's why I'm here. There are so many nurses. Melissa, you talked about it. Jenny, you talked about it. COVID did a number on us. Mental health is a fragile state of health, and it is part of health, and we all know that. So I worry about what's going on, current state in the nursing workforce that I work with, but just nursing in general and healthcare providers in general. We have very stressful jobs, and we have stressful lives outside of here. And so how do people cope? You, Jenny and Melissa, you kind of told your story. I think there's many others who do that as well. And how do we prevent that from crossing the line? So WISPAN, I have actually talked about this very publicly here. Kristen is going to come. She did nursing grand rounds before she started WISPAN for us here at Children's. I can't remember what year that was, Kristen. It was probably about 3 or 4 years out from being terminated from Children's. Powerful story, because I can stand in front of nurses and say, and especially nursing leaders, get a relationship with your people, make sure you are really watching for these kinds of signs and symptoms. But when Kristen stood in front of what we call our patient care leadership forum, It was really powerful. I think we have this discussion at least once a year. Really understand what's going on in the lives of your nursing staff and your entire staff, because if we can get people to employee assistance, we now have wellness counselors at Children's Wisconsin because of life happens, and there are things that sometimes you just need to talk to somebody and figure out what am I going to do to help myself heal and really take the ownership myself. But you can't do it alone, right? And so I think that is something that Kristen and we kept in touch over all of these years. And I think it was probably 3 years ago when Kristen said, "Hey, would you like to join the board?" And I said, "I think I would," because I get to be in, the same Zoom room and sometimes the same room with Melissa, Jenny, and others, and Kristen that are really working to make a difference. I mean, the fact that we are here in Wisconsin and New Mexico, I mean, oh my goodness, what connections. This is really cool. And I would love for us, Kristen, one of the things I think over the years you said, can I come back to Children's? Can I come back to Children's? I've had many nurses who have left this organization that say, can I come back? And I've really been working with our human resources department. At what point can we forgive? Please let us forgive. These are amazing people. And how do we, I mean, most nurses that have left here and say, can I come back? They would be absolutely willing to do random drug testing and things like that, which might be a stipulation if they were coming back. So I'm working to say, let's turn that piece of it around. Yes, humans make mistakes and humans can recover from those mistakes. And how do we, as nursing leaders and really the profession of healthcare, help people turn around? I mean, Melissa, you talked about it's not easy getting through nursing school. And it's not, it's something that we all have done. And it's what we thought we were going to give our lives to. And then when this stuff happens, and again, I call it crossing the line, is that how do we really work to forgive those folks who have, get them the help first, and then forgive and get them back into the workforce? And then really, how do we prevent people from crossing the line? So that's why I am involved. And I think, Kristen, you and a number of board members are going to come and meet with we have employee well-being specialists, and our chaplains or spiritual care folks are part of that team. And our grief, we have a number of folks who all do critical incident stress management, et cetera. They're going to come in front because I want this to be in the back pocket of tools to say, when somebody comes confidentially to one of our folks to say, I have issues and I think I'm starting to, like Jenny, your story, maybe I'm drinking a little too much. It's getting a little bit easier. I'm finding that, whatever the story may be, that there is another referral source. Because when there's a suicide ideation, there's an automatic referral source there for these folks. What about somebody who's getting ready to cross the line? What is that referral source? And I believe WISPAN, so in Wisconsin, it's WISPAN, is that source of getting peer support confidentially. My hope is that the people that I have referred there are in those meetings. I don't know that, and I don't need to know, but that's my hope. And so I'm really proud of Kristen for taking this to, to bringing this forward and making a difference. So when I said to Kristen, one of our conversations recently was, I would still go back and wish that I could have connected with you earlier and we could have prevented this. And what your answer to me was, actually, it probably was a good thing. Otherwise, WISPAN wouldn't be here. So if you read Kristen's book, it's a story. That road to recovery and the consequences paid it's a tough journey. And I have to give credit to the three of you here who are telling your stories, that you are making that journey, you're sticking with that journey, and you're supporting others to get through that journey as well. So one of the questions I know that came in advance to me is, what support do I have to be able to do this kind of work? Part of it is who I am. Like I said, I just call before I send that letter to the state board, because I want to really make sure people know what to expect and really to act. I will say 99% of the nurses that have had this happen are so remorseful. I am so sorry, Nancy. There was one nurse that took care of one of my children, and I reminded her of that and how much I trusted her. Well, she just lost it because she's like, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I'm sorry too. I really wish we could prevent all of this. So, I forgot where I was going with this. Well, Kristen, I just appreciate the relationship that you and I have built through this and kept connected. I think this is a good thing and it was meant to be. And I think we need to, as nursing leaders, really figure out how to help our teams deal with this as well. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I didn't get the makeup artist notice either, Melissa. So sorry. All right. Thank
We'll have to
you.
look into that.
Yeah, next time.
Oh my gosh, Nancy, thank you so much for joining us today, and for all of the support you have shown me over the years. I'm just so grateful to you that you stay connected. And she literally did call me, like we talked throughout the years after all of this happened. So, no mistake about it. That had a lot to do with where I am today. So, thank you. And I imagine your leadership, just talking about it, will help other leaders too, to be able to talk about it, maybe connect with each other and have a little bit more of a compassionate approach. So thank you very much. Okay, so now we are going to transition to the Q&A portion of the webinar. As a reminder, if you have questions, put them in the chat, but also feel free to raise your hand if you want to speak directly or ask your question directly. Otherwise, I'm happy to share the question for you. And whenever you're ready, you can do that. I did have a couple questions before the webinar for folks who couldn't join. So I just thought we would start with those. And again, if you have a question, raise your hand or throw it in the chat. So my first question will be for Jenny. Just wondering if you can expand a little bit on the role that that monitoring program had in your recovery.
Sure. So when I initially was put in the monitoring program, I was very grateful. Like Nancy had mentioned, most of us, I thought my nursing career was over. I had no chance of ever being a nurse again. So I was just really grateful that I was able to keep my nursing license and, because with the board, with the monitoring program. But for me, the monitoring program was very stressful. And I found myself um, kind of in the beginning, kind of trying to fight it. I was like, I can't even go on vacation. And so just a little very hard to navigate. But like I had said earlier, just really finding the support with other nurses in the monitoring program and having being able to talk to people and have other people help me navigate it because with the state there just really isn't there wasn't really that guide to say like, okay, this is what is expected, this is what's not. It kind of comes in this big order and I'm already anxious and nervous. So yeah, it was a little bit to adjust to. I have been navigating it okay. I basically check in daily on an app. And if I am selected for a drug test, I have 5 hours to go and get the drug test done. And I see a therapist and attend meetings. I think the biggest thing is my realization that I needed to do this for me, for my health, I had to focus on me and doing this to help myself, and everything else would work out. So once I let that kind of control of the monitoring programs controlling me, my husband's trying to tell me what to do, and just saying, I am doing this for me because I want to live a happy, healthy life. It was so much easier to let it go and embrace sobriety. And I can honestly say today that my life is just so fulfilling without alcohol, and everything has just kind of fallen into place now. So very grateful for that.
Thank you, Jenny. It's wonderful just to watch you blossom. So I'm just
Thank you.
so glad to know you.
Thank you.
Okay, nobody else has asked a question. So my next question is for you, Melissa. Wondering if you would share some thoughts about how someone might identify that a nurse may be struggling.
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I also just want to quickly say, Nancy, I just really appreciate you being here and contributing. And I just think that your role is so vital and sharing this and helping to decrease some of the stigma. And I also do love the emphasis on the fact that there is no doubt that I didn't do something wrong, that Kristen didn't do something wrong. You know, there is that piece, and that needs to be acknowledged. But that sometimes it does take that to happen in order to, you know, kind of get life back on track. And so second chances are important. So thank you. How to kind of identify? I think, you know, and this is it's tricky too, right? Because I literally did get this award that they had created on Friday. Ended up getting caught diverting on a Saturday. Was news to me on Sunday, but Friday, you know, got this award. And here, like I said in the beginning of my talk too, that, you know, I very much was that nurse that I wanted to help. I wanted things to be a team. I would go out of my way to help as much as I can, things like that. But I think there's also a lot that could have been noticed on the back end of that too. You know, boy, Melissa sure has a lot of energy to do all this, you know, and just that kind of like behavior change. I mean, I know that there are days that I would come into work and, you know, was feeling very, very low because I, you know, was going through physical withdrawals and just not able to really function. And so I, you know, my coworkers seeing me there, but then to a complete extreme, you know, a little bit later, not to assume that you can assume that everybody that's like that is on, you know, using substances, but definitely that behavior change. I think a lot of the, you know, being willing to kind of just stay later and clean up and, you know, have access to the any of the procedures that I, you know, could have given fentanyl in. I was more than willing to jump in and take those cases on. But, you know, the typical signs of drug abuse and things like, you know, wearing the longer sleeves and frequent disappearing to the bathroom and stuff. I mean, I definitely fit under all of those categories. The mood changes, and kind of withdrawn at times, and then times excessively just like in your face about wanting to help. And I think one of the other really big things that I think is key is, you know, we all know how things are as far as wasting, which is always kind of in any hospital I've worked at, you know, we all have our different ways and policies and procedures of doing so, but we so quickly, like I said, become to get to know our coworkers, whether on a personal level or just really well at work, because we spend a lot of time together. But saying like, oh, I wasted that bottle, and them saying, okay, how much was in there? You know, just that kind of honor system. I don't think that should exist. I think, you know, let me see the bottle. I think we just have to be very transparent about that, because we can miss a lot when we're just, you know, trusting that our coworkers did waste that and are doing okay. And so I think putting an emphasis on that too, to really, you know, not feeling so, I don't know, how am I trying to say this? If my friend, a good coworker, a good friend of a coworker was wasting, and I said, well, can I see the, you know, the vial that we're wasting? That should be okay. I shouldn't feel awkward doing so or bad doing that. Like, this is, you know, this is a serious thing. And I think had that ever happened with me, I wouldn't have been able to produce the bottle, first of all. But that also helped me to kind of get away with doing that for quite a long time. So, and again, it's, you know, saying that out loud, just still to this day, just really is a kick in my own gut, because you know, I so many people trusted me. And then there's people in on this webinar right now that I worked with in the past. And to know that I, took advantage of people's trust like that, that is something that, I don't want to ever forget though either, because I want to stay close to this, but that's a really real thing. And hopefully I answered that, Kristen. You know how I can just kind of go off on these tangents, but just paying close attention, close attention to anything that seems off, not feeling afraid to speak up about that. Like I said, I'm so grateful my coworkers did speak up when things were off that day. It saved my life for sure.
Thank you, Melissa. You definitely answered the question. And I really appreciate that you brought up that wasting procedure too, because really that's the number one way that drugs get diverted in hospitals. So I think it's really important to note that and say, hey, make sure you're following that procedure, doing it right, as uncomfortable as it can be sometimes, which I know because I work in an ER and it can be weird, but too bad. Actually, it's not weird anymore because all the people who work with me know my story and know that I'm going to watch them and ask them to watch me. So. But thank you once again. So Rachel has a question. Her question is, to those who shared their stories, where did you receive support to get sober? Did the diversion program provide support? So in New Mexico, it's called the Diversion Program. In Wisconsin, it's called the Monitoring Program or the PAP, Professional Assistance Procedure. But where did you get your support?
I can jump in. That's a great question. I will say that the monitoring program for the state of Wisconsin, the support that I received from them, I won't say was any fault of theirs, but I was just basically given a packet of what I needed to do. And any questions I had on where do I find this or how do I navigate that, that was just up for me to figure that part out. So there's definitely pitfalls, I think, as far as accessing, like, that kind of support to kind of help walk me through that. I didn't have that. And the support that I was able to find was through the required counseling that I needed to do. I found great support in that. I still have a very close relationship with that AODA counselor of that time. And then by going to rehab, being forced to go to rehab, not that I was unwilling to go, but I had to. That was a part of having to get my license back, which I was more than willing to do. That is where I found a lot of supportive resources. And then just the community, through rehab, I got turned on to Alcoholics Anonymous, a 12-step group, and I'm very active in that today. And that has been my lifeline really for the past 10 years. And so also the last 3 years, WISPAN, our meeting here, I think how different my time in the monitoring program would have been had I had WISPAN. Because I know that there's just it's just an incredible place to come and you can ask some of those questions very early on, like, what do I do? How do I even turn myself in? How do I sign up for the PAP program, or, when will I hear from the Board of Nursing? Those kinds of things. I mean, not having answers to those were driving me crazy at the beginning. I just didn't know what to expect. So now with SPAN, I mean, that would have been just a huge gift at the time. So hopefully it is to everybody that's coming into WISPAN now. But that was kind of on my own to find that at the beginning.
I'm just going to add with all the comments, I think the wasting issue is huge. We ended up, it's been a number of years ago now at Children's Wisconsin, we had to totally revamp. And what I did was I said, you guys need to follow the rules. I said so, and it was a huge failure. I mean, we'd had, when you don't have the system in place that nurses can follow. So we had a nurse from every single unit come up with how is that going to happen. So I think what you guys are describing is that you have to visualize it. You have to check it and watch the wasting is really kind of how that happens now at Children's, and the patient care supervisors / charge nurses on the units have to be that resource if no one else is available. And we've even said pharmacists can be that second person, etc. So I think Jenny, you came off. If you want to finish answering that question, I kind of jumped in on the wasting thing.
Oh, no, you're good. I was just going to kind of agree with what Melissa said. I felt like, yeah, the monitoring program kind of just gave me a sheet of papers that I needed to follow. And I was sort of left navigating it on my own. And again, not to say that it's their responsibility to make sure I do what I need to do. But I definitely think that there's a connection that can be made between the monitoring program and providing some support. Um, and I love that you call people, Nancy. That's so amazing because those hours and days and minutes after this happens, I mean, I was suicidal. What am I going to do with my life? I'm a failure. I am, so you are probably saving some lives and really steering people in a good direction. So I really appreciate that. And yeah, when it comes down to it, it's not the easiest program to navigate, but at the same time, it's not their responsibility for me to be sober. It's mine. And I can't, like I had just said, I can't do it for a program. I can't do it to keep my nursing license. I can't do it to satisfy anyone else except for myself. So yeah, I think their WISPAN has helped a lot. I think there's a lot of other connections that can be made, and I feel like Kristen is working on that. Um, and hopefully it'll just make it easier for nurses in the future to try to succeed. And the state will provide more resources to help us
I
succeed.
think this is where the importance of a peer recovery group such as WISPAN or NMPAN comes into play and can really work with the Board of Nursing to provide that sort of helpful resource. Because I do remember in those early days I had to meet face to face with the board to explain what I did and hear what they had to say, and that was by far the worst thing I've ever had to do, and never. And I even told them that too, that I said, when I got my nursing license, I never thought I'd be sitting in front of the Board of Nursing, and especially to say this. It was pretty humbling to say. It's like the only word that can come to my mind, but it was awful. But they made it clear that their job is to protect the public from people like me, and although that hurt and still does, I understand it, and I mean we have to have that, but to have a supportive community like WISPAN, any sort of peer recovery kind of community, is just, that's where we go then to get the support and kind of start to heal from this, but we do owe the board an explanation, and they want to make sure that the public is safe. So hopefully we can work together, with the board. I think that only helps.
So we only have 2 minutes left. Ooh, 1 minute, but I would like to recognize Denise, who has her hand raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. So I'll make this really quick. So I'm Denise Laverns. I'm the president of the Wisconsin Organization of Nurse Leaders, and just want to thank Kristen, Melissa, and Jenny for their stories. And then I want to just touch on nursing leadership. And the strong partnership that's really critical and essential that Kristen and the Wisconsin Organization of Nurse Leaders has. So Kristen is part of our board, our team. She's our liaison. She educates nurse leaders throughout Wisconsin on exactly everything we're talking about today, so that we're all on the same page, and we're developing some standard operating procedures in which we are kind, caring, and we're thoughtful about supporting each other. So nurse managers also have this issue as well. So, we are all in this together, and how we support nursing wellness at all levels in Wisconsin in all different settings is really so critical. And I just want to just shout out to Kristen and the team, because I get to be also a liaison on the WISPAN board to partner so that we can continue to to do the great work that we were made to do. And so, and to support everyone's journey wherever they are.
Thank you, Denise. Love our partnership. Just love it. So we are out of time. I just want to take this opportunity to again thank our speakers, Melissa, Jenny, and Nancy. You had such valuable contributions, and I thank you so much. And then to all of you for your active participation, your questions and engagement have really made this webinar a success. A key takeaway from this webinar is that substance use disorder can happen to any nurse. Let's share these vital resources, the Diversion Program and the New Mexico Peer Alliance for Nurses, with our colleagues to promote early intervention, support, and return to safe nursing practice. Thank you again for joining us today. Please reach out to us at nmpan2024@gmail.com. That's nmpan2024@gmail.com if you have any questions or would like some support. Stay safe and have a great rest of your day. Thanks, everybody.